next question was, I wanted to have Jack talk a little bit about the meeting that we had at the SF in the state.
Yes, Joe and Jerry and Bill and Brooks and I all, and Pam all went to meet with Paige Farnham, who is the current acting BSF director, and Don DeFranzo, who is the acting construction person for the whole state, to talk about the process of evaluating the current Morgan School in terms of a cost estimate for looking at the comparison between renovated as new and new construction, because the legislation changed in 2011 relative to the differential between new and renovated as new. So currently we are on in the process of looking at a 37% reimbursement rate for new versus 47% for renovated as new. And the question that continues to be at hand is, what is it that we need to be able to prove? Because there's language in the legislation that suggests that if you can demonstrate that new is more cost effective than renovated as new, then you would be eligible for the 47% reimbursement rate. So the cold hard part of it is that the Bureau of School Facilities and the larger umbrella group, the construction group up there, have not specifically developed a set of protocols for what would be entailed in doing that exercise to do that. Although there are currently 9 criteria that they use in reverse, when it was in reverse, that they basically have said that, that's essentially what you're still going to have to prove, that to demonstrate using the criteria that currently exist. But that we are meeting, because we're the first ones apparently to be probing this with the state, prompted Don DeFranzo to direct Paige Farnham and her crew to develop a litmus for how that would be done, or a set of criteria. So the news that we did get from that process was that ultimately it seemed reasonable for us to continue to pursue this as a process to make that determination. I think Bill and Brooks had a pretty good idea, the core essentials of what was going to need to be done, and then we'll continue to work with Paige to refine anything that comes down the pike. But the idea is that we will probably want to do 2 things. One is to do the exercise and walk through it with BCF, because that would be the first line of decision making, is that they would have the authority to make that determination right there. And if we could in fact make that case, that would be the easiest and most efficient way to move that forward. The second piece or the second option for us, and so based on the conversation, it sounds like we're probably going to attack it from both options, is to work with our legislators about adding to the notwithstanding legislative language that would allow us to be able to, or that would take it to the legislature to allow us to make that case. And the difference at that point becomes some of the additional information that would be relevant to the legislature relative to long-term investment in the community. So the ability for that particular property to be turned into commercial property would have some impact from a legislative decision-making that certainly would weigh in our favor for it to make more sense for them to reimburse at a higher rate. So I think that we walked away from that meeting with the idea that we wanted to move forward with, or that the recommendation certainly is to move forward with the exercise of evaluating the current facility as a renovate as new. One of the caveats that was very clear in the discussion was that it is a comparison between renovating as new, the 165,000 square feet of the existing building compared to the projected cost of our facility that we've been discussing at length over the last few weeks. So that's, I think those are the elements that we're working with, work in our favor largely.
Sounds good.
It was a very positive meeting. Yeah,
Well said. Good job.
thank you, Jack.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about our meetings today at the state, or do you want to touch on those yourself?
Well, you were willing to go over that.
Sure. A couple of, I thought, very positive meetings today with the state. There were no firm commitments, but we met with the education chair regarding the procedural motion to obtain a notwithstanding to accept the referendum, correct?
Resolutions.
The resolutions. And then we also met regarding the reimbursement rate with the state building committee. And we got some positive feedback. We have to be able to demonstrate that the cost to renovate the existing Morgan school will exceed the cost to build new. And so Newman is in the process of gathering the information in terms of hazardous materials, as well as our building infrastructure to provide that information to FIP to estimate. So I think overall we had a pretty positive meeting, but we got our work cut out for us in terms of gathering the information to be able to present a cogent argument to the state to demonstrate the difference in the cost. The big difference that I think is going to help us, and while they didn't commit to it firmly, the existing building, as you know, is about 165,000 square feet versus the 135,000 square feet that we're building today. And they implied, is that the correct word, Bill, that we'll be able to analyze the full 165,000 square feet for renovation, which helps our case, but we still need to collect the data and be able to present that to them. It's actually the first project, we're kind of a pilot project, which will allow them to put forward standards by which other towns might be able to present the same argument in terms of renovate versus build new. So we're a little bit of a pilot program in that regard. So over the next 2 months, we're hoping to have a package in their hand by April 1st. So that's our goal.
The statutory change was 2011, which took it from 10% to 70% for renovated new, and 20 to 80 for build new, and reversed it to 10 to 70 for new versus 20 for 80 for renovate. And but in that statutory change, they did have a provision that you can prove that it's more cost effective to build new versus renovate is new. You can get that reimbursement level raised. When we met with the co-chairs of the Education Committee today, Andrew Fleischman and Andrew Stillman, State Senator Stillman and Representative Fleischman, they were amicable to what we were talking about. They were supportive of it, and if we can do that, they would have an issue with it, but they passed it back to BSF because this is their bailiwick. That's what they're there for. Unfortunately, it's a new statute. They haven't put the parameters in place to how to evaluate this. But I think there's a little bit of pressure on them to do that. So the second meeting after was with BSF and Construction Services Director. We're in good shape. If we don't get it through BSF, we can certainly go back for a notwithstanding for that part of it as well. The other notwithstanding, no issues at all. So it was a good day of an argument.